Karen's voice screeched like a car alarm nobody could shut off, echoing down the quiet cul-de-sac. "You can't park there, you entitled brat," she bellowed, her chins wobbling as she jabbed a sausage-like finger at Lieutenant Sarah Coleman's navy blue SUV. Sarah, fresh from a 12-hour shift at the naval base, still in her pristine uniform, stood by her vehicle, grocery bags at her feet, trying to process the absurdity. Karen, the HOA's self-appointed dictator, had a reputation for terrorizing the neighborhood with her petty rules and venomous tongue, but this was a new low. The cul-de-sac was a postcard-perfect slice of suburban Virginia, with manicured lawns and white picket fences, but Karen's presence was a storm cloud. Her floral muumuu strained against her frame as she stomped closer, her phone already pressed to her ear. "Yes, 911. There's an illegal vehicle blocking my view," she lied, her voice dripping with exaggerated distress. Sarah raised an eyebrow, her calm demeanor a stark contrast to Karen's theatrics. She'd dealt with worse hostile briefings, high-stakes missions, but this was almost comical. "Ma'am, it's my driveway," Sarah said, her tone even but edged with authority. She gestured to the SUV, parked neatly in front of her own modest home. Karen's eyes narrowed, her lips curling into a sneer. "Don't you ma'am me. I know your type think you're above the rules because you wear that fancy uniform." The insult landed like a slap, but Sarah didn't flinch. She'd heard worse from drill instructors. Still, the neighbors peeking from their windows were starting to gather, drawn by Karen's escalating tantrum. Karen's call to 911 wasn't her first. The neighborhood had endured her tirades before complaints about kids' bikes, unauthorized flower beds, even a dog that barked too loudly for her liking. But targeting Sarah, a decorated Navy lieutenant who'd just returned from a 6-month deployment, was a mistake. Karen didn't know Sarah's rank carried weight beyond the base, or that the local police respected the chain of command, especially when it came to one of their own. 2 squad cars pulled up, their lights flashing lazily in the fading daylight. Officers Daniels and Rivera stepped out, exchanging weary glances. They knew Karen by name, her voice a frequent screech on their dispatch radio. "What's the issue, Miss Thompson?" Daniels asked, his tone flat. Karen launched into a tirade, pointing at Sarah's SUV like it was a war crime. "This woman's blocking my view. It's a safety hazard. I demand you tow it now." Her voice cracked with indignation, as if Sarah had personally offended her ancestors. Sarah crossed her arms, her medals glinting under the streetlights. "Officers, I'm Lieutenant Sarah Coleman, U.S. Navy. This is my property, and my vehicle is parked legally." Her voice was steady, commanding, the kind that made recruits snap to attention. Daniels nodded, recognizing her instantly spoken at their precinct's Veterans Day event last year. Rivera, newer to the force, glanced at Karen, then back at Sarah, clearly torn. Karen's face reddened, her hands flailing. "You can't just let her off because she's in uniform. I'm the HOA president. I make the rules here." The neighbors, now a small cluster of 5, murmured among themselves. Old Mr. Jenkins, who'd lived on the street for 30 years, whispered to his wife, "Karen's about to get her comeuppance." His wife nodded, clutching her cardigan, her eyes gleaming with anticipation. Across the street, young Mia, a college student home for the weekend, filmed the scene on her phone, barely stifling a laugh. The tension was palpable, the air thick with the promise of a reckoning. Daniel stepped forward, his patience thinning. "Miss Thompson, we've been over this. You can't call 911 for HOA disputes. This is a private driveway." Karen's jaw dropped, her face a mask of outrage. "Are you kidding me? I pay taxes. I deserve respect." She turned to Sarah, her voice venomous. "You think you're so special, strutting around in that uniform. You're nothing but a glorified taxi driver for the government." The insult hung in the air, sharp and ugly. Sarah's eyes darkened, but her composure held. She'd faced real enemies, ones with weapons, not just words. Still, Karen's words stung, not for Sarah but for the neighbors who'd grown tired of her tyranny. Mia, still filming, gasped audibly, and Mr. Jenkins shook his head, muttering, "Big mistake." Rivera, sensing the crowd's mood, stepped in. "Ma'am, you need to calm down. You're causing a disturbance." Karen scoffed, her hands on her hips. "A disturbance? She's the disturbance. I want her cited for disorderly conduct." She gestured wildly at Sarah, who remained statue still, her uniform a silent testament to her discipline. Daniels had had enough. He turned to Sarah, his tone respectful. "Lieutenant, do you want to press charges for harassment? We've got a record of her calls 6 this month alone." The crowd gasped, and Karen's bravado faltered. Her eyes darted between the officers, Sarah, and the neighbors, who were now openly smirking. "Charges? For what?" "I'm protecting this neighborhood," she sputtered. Sarah considered it, her gaze locking onto Karen's. For a moment, the street was silent, save for the hum of cicadas. Then she spoke, her voice low but cutting. "I don't need charges to prove a point. But you should know, Miss Thompson, respect isn't demanded, it's earned. And you're running on empty." The words landed like a precision strike, and Karen's face crumpled, her confidence unraveling. The officers didn't need to do much after that. Daniels issued Karen a formal warning for misuse of 911, a misdemeanor that carried a potential fine. Rivera added, "Next time, it's a citation. Or worse." Karen's mouth opened, then closed, her usual bluster deflated. The neighbors erupted in quiet cheers, Mia's video already racking up views as she uploaded it with the caption, "HOA Karen versus Navy Lieutenant, guess who won?" As the officers drove off, Karen retreated to her house, her muumuu swishing angrily. Sarah picked up her spilled groceries, her hands steady despite the adrenaline. Mr. Jenkins approached, his voice warm. "You handled that like a pro, Lieutenant. We're lucky to have you." Mia chimed in, "That was epic. You're my hero." Sarah smiled, a rare crack in her stoic facade. "Just doing my jobin' and off the base." The neighborhood settled back into its evening rhythm, but the story of Karen's downfall spread like wildfire. By morning, the HOA board had received a petition signed by 20 residents demanding Karen's removal as president. Her reign of petty terror was over, undone by her own arrogance and a Navy officer who knew the real meaning of authority. Karen's mistake wasn't just calling 911. It was underestimating a woman who'd faced far worse than her tantrums. Sarah didn't need to raise her voice or throw a punch to win. Her uniform, her poise, and her quiet strength had spoken louder than Karen's screams ever could. In the end, the cul-de-sac was free, and Karen was left to stew in the bitter consequences of her own making. The end.